How trauma rewires the brain. Understanding the invisible wounds. Trauma is one of the most misunderstood forces in human life. Many people believe trauma is only about terrible memories, painful emotions, or events that happened in the past. But trauma is not just psychological. Trauma is biological. It changes the structure, chemistry, and functioning of the human brain. It rewires how we think, feel, remember, and respond to the world around us. To understand trauma, we must first understand the brain. The human brain is not a fixed machine. It is a living, adapting organ. Every experience we have leaves a mark. Every emotion, every fear, every moment of safety or danger shapes neural connections. Trauma is powerful because it overwhelms the brain's natural ability to process experience in a healthy way. Trauma occurs when the nervous system is pushed beyond its capacity to cope. This can happen in a single terrifying moment or slowly over years of repeated stress, neglect, or abuse. When trauma happens, the brain does not simply record a memory. Instead, it shifts into survival mode. And when survival becomes the priority, long-term changes begin. This is the story of how trauma rewires the brain. What is trauma, really? Trauma is not defined by the event itself. Trauma is defined by how the nervous system responds to the event. Two people can experience the same situation, yet one becomes traumatized and the other does not. The difference lies in perception, support, timing, and biology. Trauma happens when a person feels intense fear, helplessness, or threat and cannot escape or protect themselves. The brain interprets the experience as life-threatening, even if no physical harm occurs. Emotional trauma can be just as powerful as physical trauma. Trauma can come from violence or accidents, childhood abuse or neglect, emotional abandonment, bullying or humiliation, chronic stress or poverty, natural disasters, medical trauma, loss of a loved one. But trauma can also come from experiences that seem normal to outsiders. A child growing up in an unpredictable household, a person constantly criticized or emotionally ignored, a life lived in fear even without visible scars. The brain does not care about logic, it cares about safety. The brain's first job, survival. The human brain evolved for one primary purpose, survival. Long before modern society, the brain helped humans detect danger, respond quickly, and stay alive. That ancient system still operates today. When the brain senses danger, it activates a powerful survival response. This response is automatic. It does not require conscious thought. It happens faster than reasoning. The survival system includes the amygdala, which detects threat, the hypothalamus, which activates stress hormones, and the brainstem, which controls fight, flight, or freeze. This system is extremely efficient, but it is not designed for modern life. It does not distinguish between a predator in the wild and emotional danger in a relationship. To the brain, threat is threat. Trauma hijacks this system. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure deep inside the brain. Its job is to scan the environment for danger. It is always active, even when we are asleep. In a healthy brain, the amygdala activates when necessary and calms down when the danger passes. But in a traumatized brain, the amygdala becomes overactive. After trauma, the amygdala may react strongly to minor stress, misinterpret neutral situations as threats, stay activated for long periods, trigger fear without conscious awareness. This is why traumatized individuals may feel anxious for no clear reason. Their brain is constantly scanning for danger. Their alarm system is stuck in the on position. This is not weakness, it is adaptation. The stress response and hormonal flooding. When the amygdala detects threat, it sends an emergency signal to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus activates the body's stress response system, releasing hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline prepares the body for immediate action. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing is rapid. Cortisol mobilizes energy. It suppresses digestion, immune response, and long-term thinking. All resources are redirected towards survival. In short bursts, this response is healthy. It saves lives. But trauma causes repeated or prolonged activation of this system. Over time, constant cortisol exposure becomes toxic to the brain. How trauma changes brain chemistry. Chronic stress alters neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers of the brain. Trauma disrupts the balance of these chemicals. Serotonin, which regulates mood and emotional stability, may decrease. This contributes to depression and emotional numbness. Dopamine, involved in pleasure and motivation, may be dysregulated. This can lead to addiction, compulsive behavior, or loss of interest in life. Norepinephrine, associated with alertness, may remain elevated. This causes hypervigilance, insomnia, and constant tension. The brain becomes chemically tuned for survival, not joy. The hippocampus, the memory under attack. The hippocampus plays a critical role in memory, learning, and distinguishing past from present. It helps us understand that a traumatic event is over. Trauma directly impacts the hippocampus. High levels of cortisol can shrink hippocampal neurons. Studies show that people with PTSD often have a smaller hippocampus. When the hippocampus is impaired, memories become fragmented, time perception is distorted, trauma feels like it is happening now. The past invades the present. The brain cannot file the memory away as finished. The prefrontal cortex, the rational brain, goes offline. The prefrontal cortex is the most advanced part of the human brain. It controls reasoning, impulse control, emotional regulation, and decision-making. During trauma, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. This is why people can't think clearly during terrifying events. Logic is sacrificed for speed. But in chronic trauma, this shutdown becomes a pattern. The prefrontal cortex may struggle to regulate emotions, have difficulty calming the amygdala, experience poor impulse control, feel overwhelmed by stress. This leads to emotional outbursts, shutdowns, dissociation, or numbness. The person may ask, why can't I control myself? The answer is, the brain is prioritizing survival. Trauma and the developing brain. Trauma is especially powerful when it occurs in childhood. A child's brain is still forming. Neural pathways are being built based on experience. When a child grows up in a threatening or unpredictable environment, the brain adapts accordingly. In a traumatic childhood, the amygdala grows more reactive, the prefrontal cortex develops less control, the nervous system becomes hypersensitive. The brain learns that the world is unsafe. This can shape personality, attachment style, emotional regulation, and self-identity. Children do not develop trauma because they are weak. They develop trauma because their brain is doing its best to survive. The freeze response and dissociation. Not all trauma responses involve fight or flight. Sometimes escape is impossible. When the brain detects that resistance is futile, it activates the freeze response. Freeze is a state of immobilization. The body becomes still. Awareness narrows. Pain may be numbed. Dissociation is closely related to freeze. Dissociation is when the mind disconnects from the body or reality to reduce suffering. It is a survival mechanism. Trauma survivors may feel detached from their body, feel unreal or numb, lose time or memory, feel emotionally distant. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of a nervous system protecting itself. Trauma is not a memory problem. One of the biggest myths about trauma is that it is about remembering too much. In reality, trauma is about remembering in the wrong way. Trauma memories are stored in the survival brain, not the narrative brain. They are sensory, emotional, and physical. This is why talking about trauma doesn't always heal it. Triggers can be unconscious. The body reacts before the mind understands. The brain learned the trauma as a threat, not a story.